Hello there, this is Tina from Content Creators Club. If you don't already know who I am, I help creators like you add leads and revenue to your business without relying on social media so that you can have time to enjoy life. And so, with that being said, I really want to talk about this concept of when creator business becomes exhausting business. And oh, by the way, if you have already done so, join Content Creators Club. It's below this video on YouTube. And if you're watching this from the newsletter, check out the offer below this video as well. But I really want to talk about this concept of exhausting business and how a lot of people, especially in the creator industry, actually experience this. And so, I really want to talk about I have a hard time working less in this business. And that might come as a shock because for some of you, you might be like, what do you mean work less? Like that just is like a foreign concept to me. And it was to me back in the day as well. But you get to a point where you build the systems, the automations, the funnels, etc., and you build, and then you're like, I'm done building. What happens afterwards, right? And so you kind of have kind of this learning curve when it comes to working less, where you ask yourself like, what do I do next, right? Because maybe you come from a bloodline of immigrants where literally like work is in our blood. I literally my grandmother came here from nothing, my grandparents came here with nothing. Like working hard is easier for us than not working at all. And so, there's this interesting story that I thought was really pertinent to this conversation is, I want to talk about my grandmother on my father's side, right? Little like I call her abuela, like on my father's side. And so she was interesting growing up because she always found a way to sell something. I didn't spend a ton of time with her growing up, but my dad would always tell me stories of like she could literally sell anything. Like at the factory is both your workplace, but it was also like your marketplace, right? And so, when my dad came here with nothing, he actually took on a job in addition to working in high school in his teens, and he worked at KFC because traditionally in our culture, like you always want to help your elders. It's important to do that. And so obviously, like if you see your parents struggling, like you're going to take on a job and you're going to help your parents. Like that's normal for us, right? And so, he worked at KFC to get a second job. And so, when KFC had this thing where if there was extra food, then the staff got to take it home. And so basically, like that was his meal, but it was also an opportunity where it's like, all right, like if I'm gonna be able to take things extra to go that we don't sell, then I might as well just make extra loads of chicken on purpose. Like, don't tell KFC this, but my dad did that. And so he would take the extra loads of chicken, feed his siblings and his parents, and essentially, like, what happened next is whatever was left over, my grandmother would essentially take it to the factory the next day and take it to the marketplace, and basically she would sell out. Like she had this amazing ability to sell, not because she needed it, not because like it came naturally to her, but it was because it was a necessity, right? Selling is one of those skills, like if you know how to sell, you never go hungry a day in your life. And so for her it was a necessity because she was supporting her children. And so, when I tell you like hard work is literally in my fucking blood, like it is so hard for me to not work because I love what I do. I love working. I love that I get to write, I get to teach, and that I get to actually like make my impact on this corner of the internet. So thank you for watching. But you get to a point where you're like, you built this business so you don't have to work so hard. What happens when you get to that point, right? And so what ends up happening for me early on is that I would feel guilty for being in rest mode. I would feel guilty because it's like there's so many things that I could be doing with this time, but I'm just going to choose not to. And so not to because I don't need to, right? And so this kind of really came in full circle for me because after being burnt out twice in business, not only in this business but in another business, right? I realized that rest is not a feature, but it's actually a core. It's a necessity. It's not a problem, but it's a core. And so when you get to the point of enjoying the fruits of your labor, actually enjoy the fruits of your labor. Like have a life outside of business. The only thing that I do now is I just write, and that's pretty much it. And so having the problem of figuring out what to do when you have more time is a better position to be in when you have less when you have the problem of not having enough time, right? And so having a life outside of business is really important, right? Because at the end of the day, like there's this classic saying of like you can't take money to your deathbed, but you can take the memories with you. So what do you choose to do with the time that you have on this earth, right? Do you want to spend the time that you have on this earth working on your business every day? Probably not the case, or at least that's not what I want to do, right? And so when you think to yourself, like, well, how do I get there? How do I get to that point where like business is not all consuming of my life? The first thing I would say is build a leveraged lead gen system. And what does that mean? Spend less time focusing on getting leads, but just get more leads. And so that might sound weird to you, but like you can get more leads and spend less time at the same time at the same process. And the best way I know how to do that is through collaborations at scale, right? Because you can choose to scale your relationships and get a better return on time that way, or you can choose to scale an algorithm and still be stuck to it and stuck to trends and stuck to staying glued on social media. That's the way, not the way that I like to run my business, and I don't think that's the way that you should run your business. But focusing on collaborations that matter is the best use of our time. And thankfully we have a collaborations membership to help you do just that. And so as a heads up, FYI, definitely sign up within the next 2 days, inclusive of today, because you'll get $100 off when you use the coupon code BF100 your first year off of our annual memberships only. So that offer is extended until the 5th, and the 5th is also when we release our next collaborations email of the month. So I hope to see you in it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!